Hey, Sweetwater, this is Pastor Andrew. February 9th was a unique service for us. We were not able to do Facebook Live because we had some of our spiritual heroes with us, some of our missionaries. And a couple of our missionaries serve in countries where they can't be public about what it is that they're there for. And so they have to be creative in the way they approach ministry, the way they approach life, and the way that they serve people. They serve people, and it's through that relationship that they're able to impact their hearts and begin to have conversations about Jesus Christ. It makes me once again so grateful that we live in the United States of America, where we still have so much religious freedom, to where we can still stand up and say, "Yay, God, go Jesus," and we don't have to have fear of a government. We might have fear that some people think we're crazy and we might go viral on some social media, but overall we have so much freedom, and I'm so grateful for that. And so what this Sunday was about was just re-engaging our hearts for missions. Our church has a huge passion, a huge heart for missions. We support over 40 missionaries every single month with some level of income, with prayer, and with our encouragement as they're on the field in countries all over the globe. We also support missions here locally. This is our Jerusalem. Acts 1:8 says, "But you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem," and then it goes on to the ends of the world. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a quick devotional about having a heart for missions. Jonah chapter 1, and I'm going to read a little bit here. It says, "The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because the wickedness has come up before me," Jesus says. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. Tarshish was the exact opposite direction of Nineveh. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Interesting decision there. And then it goes on to say the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. You know, it's almost like a scene out of Pinocchio, or, you know, if you were in Sunday school, maybe you had those felt boards where they had Jonah and the big whale. And but the principle I want you to get out of this is God had a heart for those people in Nineveh. God wanted to see them reached. God wanted to see them set free from the bondage of sin and death and to have a relationship. And so he called Jonah, and Jonah said no. He didn't just say no, it was a defiant no. If you're watching today and you have kids, you know, when my son kind of gives me a little attitude and shrugs his shoulders and, "No, Dad," you know, I get focused. But if he were to look at me and say, "Dad, I heard what you told me to do. Dad, I know what your expectations are, but Dad, my answer is no," and he leaves the room and goes to his door and slams it shut, let me tell you, the footsteps going up those stairs will be mine. They will be loud, and there will be fear in the house. But that's what Jonah did. I mean, he looked at God and said, "God, I hear you. God, I know what you want to do. God, I know you can do it. But God, my answer is no. And it is such a strong no, I'm going in the opposite direction." But you know, God has a way of finding us. He certainly found Jonah. And could you imagine 3 days in the belly of a fish? I am not a sushi fan. What did he eat? I'm a steak and potato guys. I doubt that was in the belly that day. And of course, there's so much discussion, about Jonah in the belly of the whale, what that looked like. But the bottom line is this: God provided him a second chance. Spit him out on the beach at the closest possible point in the Mediterranean Sea to get to Nineveh. God put him back on the right path. God worked on his heart. And from there was some immediate obedience. And that's the way we have to do. We have to be willing to obey what God says. Sometimes that means getting out of our comfort zone. Sometimes that means reaching the person that maybe isn't easy to reach. I grew up in Orlando, and my mom had this job one summer working with SeaWorld and some other theme parks. And what I loved about the job is it got me into SeaWorld and those parks for free. And because of her job, I'd be there once, two, three times a week. I'd bring friends. We'd have a blast. But I always loved going to watch Shamu. It just never got old to me. And on some hot days in Orlando, sitting in those first few rows when Shamu comes by, oh man, it's so much fun. Just when that tail sweeps across, you just get soaked. The splash zone. But there's other times where, I'd sit a little bit higher and he'd still try to splash. Sometimes you got to go beyond the splash zone. Splash zone's fun, splash zone's easy. But when mom and dad were with me, it was like, nope, we're going to sit up top. You're not going to get all that salt water over you because you're about to get in our car and we're going to turn the air conditioning on and we don't want you to get sick. And so I had to go beyond the splash zone. Think about Jesus. He fed 5,000 people. What if he just said, all right, we're just going to feed those on the front row? What if we're going to just feed the first couple rows? No. He went beyond that. He went beyond the splash zone. And that's what missions is all about for me. It's easy to see somebody in need and minister to them. We need to do that. But God may be calling you or challenging you to go beyond the splash zone. He challenged Jonah. Jonah finally, reluctantly, that's why he's called the reluctant prophet, obeyed. There's times in our church where we've had to go beyond the splash zone. There's people lost in Calcutta, India. There's people lost in Sweetwater. Calcutta, India, there's enough people over there. Why do we need to invest? Why do we need to go there? And my answer is simply this. When I look at what God is doing, I have to recognize that God has the right to position his people and his resources wherever he chooses. I remember traveling to Calcutta. I think it took 3 or 4 flights, layovers in hotels or in airports, many time zones. Why, God? Why do I need to go there? I can walk down the street and there's people in Sweetwater with need. And that's where I keep hearing that voice of God. I'm going to position you and my people and my resources wherever I choose. We just have to obey. And so missions is about obeying. Yes, be intentional with that splash zone, but let's venture beyond that. In our church, over the last several years, we've built a church in Brazil. We've remodeled schools in Nicaragua. We've had some fun stories there. We've helped with a dream center in Southeast Asia. We've helped with playgrounds and other equipment and projects in Cambodia. We have provided well over 40 now clean water filter systems through Convoy of Hope. We have provided meals to about 5 or 6 different countries to where they could help feed children every single day for a month. There's a lot of projects we've been doing, disaster relief things. And so that's going beyond the splash zone. So yes, we still got the food pantry. Yes, we still help those when they have a need here in Sweetwater, and we're going to continue that. But part of the exciting thing of missions is going beyond the splash zone. So it's just so much fun to do missions. And if you've been around me any length of time, you've heard about some of the stories in Kenya of just seeing missionaries reach for the gospel. You've seen us, help a school in Kenya that are reaching people that have absolutely no chance of hearing Jesus. One of the cool things about the Jonah story is he shares his message of hope to the people of Nineveh, and they get saved. One of the shortest sermons in Scripture. It was a few verses. And then Jonah goes out and pouts about it. God actually did what he said he was going to do. What a shame. Because that's how Jonah's story ends. It's very abrupt. Read chapter 4. It's just a few verses. How sad. I want to make sure we have a heart for missions. I want to make sure we have a heart for reaching those with a need. I want to make sure we have a heart for venturing beyond the splash zone and helping impact lives around us. One of my favorite stories is the story of Zacchaeus. Here's a guy that was so short, he couldn't see Jesus through the crowd. I've thought about that story many times, and every time I think about it, I ask myself, who's the crowd? And I keep saying it's the church. Is the church sometimes so fixated being close to seeing Jesus in that natural setting that we're actually blocking people from coming to Jesus? Now, I could unpack that a whole lot differently, but the principle is this. Let's also be concerned about people. And let's be like the tree, that sycamore tree. And let's lift people up like that tree did for Zacchaeus, so that Zacchaeus can see Jesus while at the same time we're still focused on Jesus. Let's be a church where we are lifting people up so that they can find hope, so they can find Jesus. I want to encourage you to make a daily habit. Pray for our missionaries. Pray for the projects that we partner on. Pray for fresh opportunities. But also pray that as you're walking into Walmart and you see somebody in need, that God may move on your heart to encourage them. Pray that as people come to our door throughout the week and say, hey, Pastor Andrew, we need a little bit of food this week, that we always have enough in that warehouse here, that storage closet that grabs them groceries, and say, God bless you. Pray that the widow that we reach out to will have plenty of coats to wear or gloves when it gets colder. For days like today while I'm filming, we need an umbrella. Pray that God would answer the prayers and the needs of our community, but also be willing to recognize that you might be the answer that God is providing for the hope of that individual. We're a missions-minded church. We're a missional church. And I just want to encourage you to be missional. Lord, bless your people as they've heard this message today. Give all of us, Lord, a renewed heart for reaching people, for venturing beyond the splash zone, and helping seeing people have hope and revival in their hearts. In Jesus' name. God bless you and have a blessed day. Thanks for watching this.